All right, all right, all right, all right, all right. I got rid of the candle. Well, I didn't get rid of the candle. I still have it. I still use it because I like candles. I've always liked candles, but I'm not using the candle anymore because I've seen quite a few comments about my candle being close to the curtains. Now, I will say though, in my defense, according to fire safety and whatnot, if you look it up, I don't know if it's different in other parts of the world, but here in the United States, it's recommended for at least, about 12 inches, a foot of distance around a candle is considered safe. If I did my math correct, it should be like, what, 30 and a half inches? Not 30 and a half inches, Jesus. 30 and a half centimeters, right? Something like that. Yeah, about 30 and a half centimeters. That was my choice. I like my candles, but I also really like the moon. And what that is it's the moon, and it changes colors, but with the camera you can't really tell the detail, and that's besides the point. I also like that it changes colors too. Yeah. I am going to get a new camera here in the next week, 2 weeks, and it will be a lot clearer and it will be a lot better quality. So I'm happy about that, and that will make a big difference. Today, what we're going to be checking out and we're going to be getting into, since I said that, obviously if I'm going to be traveling here in the next year and wanting to, visit other countries, I need to get a good understanding, or at least a better understanding, of the differences between our economic system and our economy versus the way that the economy and the economic system in other countries work. So this one is by Evan Thomas, and again, just like with Travel and Young, this is his first reaction to this gentleman, and I believe that he should get credit where credit is due. They put together the video and the content. I'm just reacting to it. So what it is learning the differences between American capitalism and Swedish socialism. Sweden's economic and political model is often misunderstood, especially by Americans not familiar with social democracy. In this video, we present an unbiased comparison between American's economic model and Sweden's economic model, and let you decide for yourself which you think is superior. All right. So again, I'm an American, and I'm going to react to this and let you know what I think and give you my unbiased opinion. This is just my opinion and my thoughts based on what I understand in my world. So don't, at all take this criticism towards these people. It's not like that at all. And I don't even know what I'm getting myself into. So, all right, here we go. I've talked enough. On to the video.
I'm a proud American that's been living in Sweden for just about 2 years now, paying very high taxes, but also enjoying the benefits of the Nordic welfare model.
And I'm a proud Swede that lived in the US for 2 years.
And in this video, you are going to get an unbiased view of Swedish socialism. We're going to present the facts about the two economies and let you decide what you think is the better system. Because no matter if you're the type of American that listens to NPR on the left or watches Fox News on the right, whenever Sweden is in the US media, there's generally some sort of agenda behind it.
There's a lot of interest about Sweden and its Scandinavian neighbors because they rank at the very top of almost every global index, including quality of life index, prosperity index,
freedom of press index, life expectancy
democracy index,
ease of doing business index, global entrepreneurship index, least corrupt countries index, world happiness index,
work-life balance index,
human development index,
religious freedom index,
better life index, and so on. So it's no wonder that Sweden...
Yeah, we pretty much figured that out too in the last video, and got a good idea too on where the rankings are on that index, as far as what the top 10 reasons why America sucks or why you shouldn't live in America. That was like I said, trying to compare and keep an unbiased opinion between my country and the countries that I'm comparing it to. So yeah.
And its Nordic neighbors pop up a lot in the media during the American election cycle.
That when you look around the world, you see every other major country providing health care to all people as a right, except the United States. Those are some of the principles that I believe in, and I think we should look to countries like Denmark, like Sweden, and Norway, and learn from what they have accomplished for their working people.
Here in the United States, we are alarmed by the new calls to adopt socialism in our country.
So what is Swedish socialism exactly?
What people are really referring to is social democracy, which is a political, social, and economic philosophy. Most of the major Western European countries have a social democracy to some extent. You have the Nordics, you have France,
Germany,
Italy,
Belgium.
and the Social Democrats here in Sweden has been a dominant party for 50 years.
And what social democracy advocates is egalitarianism. That is social, political, and economic justice. They basically want everyone to have the same opportunities and for there to be upward mobility in society. And what people actually fail to realize is that Sweden is a free market economy.
At one time, Sweden was more of what you imagine when you say a socialist country. In the 1970s, there were extremely high taxes. The government had a lot of monopolies. The labor unions had a big grip on politics. And because of that, growth stagnated.
It wasn't until the major economic reforms of the 90s, when taxes were lowered and industries were deregulated and privatized, that Sweden's economic growth rate surpassed that of other developed countries. But what didn't change in the 1990s were the welfare programs that Swedes had become accustomed to. Because once you get a taste of those things, it's almost impossible to take them away.
And we're talking about stuff like government paid college, elderly care,
universal health care, child care, retirement pensions. Interestingly enough, many of these services are actually provided by private companies, yet subsidized by the government. For example, 50% of Swedish high schools are private. However, all students in Sweden receive vouchers from the government that funds their tuition. And what this actually does is fosters competition between schools and therefore elevates the level of education. I think what's really interesting about the US is that you have such a huge gap between the rich and the poor. And that gap is increasing year after year. You hear about the 1% of the US controlling nearly 40% of the country's wealth. And I remember when you were living in LA, you actually commented a few times that you thought it was so strange how many old and sort of rundown, shitty cars there were everywhere.
Yeah, I was so surprised because you saw shitty cars everywhere. But then at the same time, you would also see like Bentleys and Lamborghinis and Ferraris, like really luxury cars driving around next to these really shitty cars that barely can drive.
Yeah, and
Yeah, and the wealth gap is huge. And I believe that there's going to be a change coming soon in the wealth gap of the United States. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on about this, but I also recently found out, though, and I'm going to throw something out here, and maybe I've got a couple subscribers, maybe I've got some people that are watching this that, I don't know, maybe I'm going to throw this out there and we're going to see, okay? Been involved in the stock market quite a bit in my life. And since January, I got involved in AMC, the AMC movie theaters. But anyways, fast forward to here recently, and I found out that there's actually quite a bit of people in Sweden that are invested in AMC, and that there's a lot of apes out there from Sweden. So if you're an ape and you understand what I'm talking about, then that's awesome. And so AMC is obviously the movie theaters, and there's a big issue going on in the stock market where there's been a lot of manipulation, a lot of different things where obviously the 99%, the wealth maintain their wealth, the rich get richer and the poor stay poorer. You know, the retail investor in the stock market is just dumb money and all yada, yada, yada. You know, that's why you don't have retail investors. You don't have, the guys like me and you that are successful in the stock market. You really don't, because it's so designed against the little guy. And right now there's honestly a revolution going on, and that revolution is going to come more and more to light, and you can look it up if you have access to it. It's like I said, AMC movie theaters. There's a big deal going on with Wall Street and the battle between the retail investors and the hedge funds and the trying to bankrupt companies and to short them out and take them underground and destroy them so that way they can profit off of it, and that's not right. So anyways, back to the video.
There's a huge juxtaposition between the poor and the rich there, and I think the cars are sort of a good proxy of measuring wealth inequality.
But here in Sweden, almost every single car is in good condition.
Yeah, I actually thought about that the other day when I was waiting for the bus. I've noticed like car after car after car was in great shape and was 5 years old or newer. And I thought back to that comment you made when we were in LA about just like the differences between the cars. And in the US, you have really poor rural and urban areas. So for example, you have the inner cities, you have the Rust Belt, you have Appalachia and other places that are declining economically.
And at the same time, you have really rich neighborhoods like, the Hamptons,
Malibu,
or Palo Alto,
Jupiter, Florida, Greenwich,
Montecito,
Connecticut. Yeah.
Yep.
And you really just don't have that in Sweden. I mean, more or less, all the neighborhoods are the same. There are, of course, nicer neighborhoods and there are poor neighborhoods, but it's nothing like, the differences in the US. It's a lot more equal.
Yeah, so we have a saying in Sweden, or it's called Middelsvensson. It's kind of like the average Swede. And an average Swede, you would say it's like a mom and a dad, 2 kids. They have 2 cars. One of them will probably be a Volvo. They own a 3-bedroom house. And they go on 2 vacations per year.
And they live a really comfortable, nice lifestyle. Definitely the...
Okay. My question that I was waiting to see how far it went was, what's the homelessness like? What's the homeless population, or how does that how is that portrayed there? What is the percentage rate, or how big of an issue is it? How do you guys treat it? Good question. At least to me it is, right? There's no dumb questions, because if you don't ask questions, then you can't learn, you can't grow from that. So what is the homeless ratio like? Because in LA, the amount of homelessness is just outrageous. In San Diego, that was outrageous. And I actually met a homeless guy whenever I went to San Diego, and ultimately, I'm not going to say saved his life, but he would say, in a way, roundabout saved his life. He was homeless. He was living on a park bench. He had absolutely nothing. He had nothing. And I met him, spent a couple of days with him. I could turn this into an actual real story as far as explaining really how it is. And I spent like 4 days with him. We'll get back into it.
Average Swedish lifestyle is more comfortable than the average American lifestyle.
Oh yeah, totally.
Before we go any further, if you're finding this video useful, please give us a thumbs up and please click the subscribe button. This goes a long way to support our channel so that we can make more videos. And if you're curious about our life in Sweden,
go do that.
You can follow us on Instagram. The links are in the description below. Sweden is perhaps the most equal country in the world in terms of income. Income equality is measured by the World Bank with something called the Gini coefficient. It's a number between 0 and 100. 0 theoretically means that everyone has the same income, and 100 would mean that one person gets all of the income. Countries with high levels of income inequality are like South Africa at 63%, Zambia at 57%, and Brazil at 54%. Sweden is on the opposite side of the spectrum and has an extremely low Gini coefficient of 28%. Only a handful of countries have lower than that. I think it's like Finland and Iceland.
I think.
Finland and Iceland. And for comparison, the US is at 41%. So Sweden has a very equal income equality.
The reason Sweden's Gini coefficient is so low is due to 2 things. Number 1 is the strong labor unions, and the second one is high marginal tax rates.
Although there are no minimum wage laws in Sweden, wages for even low-skilled jobs are higher than that in the US because of the power of the labor unions and the collective bargaining agreements they form with employers. Some might say that the labor unions actually have even too much power in Sweden. For example, most retail workers are paid double on Sundays. And so to counter the cost of this, most stores have either reduced hours on Sundays or they are closed altogether. So there are some negative things about the labor unions being that powerful. The other reason why Swedes have such similar incomes is due to taxes.
Okay, well, let's put into account that Walmart, which is like one of the world's largest retail chains and one of the world's largest employers, and has one of the world's largest incomes, and makes one of the most amount of money. They're one of the richest companies, right? And Walmart, because of the pandemic and all that, they used to be 24 hours a day, and then all of a sudden they shut down, and now where they're only open from Every Walmart that I know of now and has been to now, and for at least almost a year, has been they open at like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and they close at 10 p.m., 11 p.m. They used to be 24 hours. So, and then, a lot of people love Chick-fil-A, the restaurant, the fast food restaurant. It's closed on Sunday, and they're a very successful company. So, we can reduce. They're going to reduce hours and cut hours anyways. Why not? Why not then be closed on Sunday? Except for the handful, you still got your majors. I don't know. I'm just kind of pulling at strings here, but yeah. I guess what I'm getting at is there's not really much of a difference, so therefore you can't. I guess I'm on your side, right? How much of a difference is that really to where we can't afford that? We can't afford to pay you guys more.
And I think that this is the thing that scares Americans most when they hear the term socialism, is the high taxes. The top marginal tax rate in Sweden is the highest in the world at 57.2%. That's 20 percentage points higher than the US's top rate of 37%.
And in the US, you need to be making over $510,000 every year to be taxed at 37%, whereas in Sweden, you only have to make $82,000 per year to be taxed at 37%.
So yes, taxes certainly are higher in Sweden than they are in the US, but what do you get for paying those high taxes? As we mentioned before, these taxes fund the safety net, so unemployment, childcare, higher education, and elderly care. This means that the most productive people, though, are indirectly supporting the least productive people. And this is where the socialist aspect comes in.
So you might be thinking, with such high taxes, it must be impossible for Swedes to get rich.
And this is where a strange paradox comes in, actually. So we saw earlier that Sweden's income Gini coefficient is 28%, which means very equal incomes for everyone. However, Sweden's wealth Gini coefficient is 84%, which is the second highest of all developed nations. The USA is the first. This means that the wealth gap is actually quite high. And that doesn't seem to make sense, right? Because the income gap is so low. Usually countries that have high income inequality also have high wealth inequality. It makes sense, right? So the more money that people make, the more they save, the more they invest, and the more wealth they generate. And that typically is the case with countries like South Africa, Brazil, etc. But in Sweden, due to taxation, things are a little bit different here. Because although in Sweden the salaries are equal, there are a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners that make millions, if not billions, of US dollars every year. In fact, Sweden has the second most billionaires per capita of any Western developed nation. Only Switzerland has more per capita. And yes, there are more billionaires per capita in Sweden than there are in the US. And these business owners are taking dividends from their companies, which is taxed at a flat capital.
Okay, here's a question real quick. So with your billionaires, are they actually paying that tax? Or I guess I know that there's probably tax ways that you can reduce your tax bill, but I'm saying let's throw in, for instance, here a multi-billion-dollar company here, but yet only pays a couple $1,000s in taxes because they find every little loophole and every little way to avoid paying taxes, and so they're just we keep our $10 billion and we give you a little bit of chump change. I personally think that that's not right. I mean, if I have to pay a percent, now I understand, okay, I don't know. Because there's multiple sides to it, right? We have laws that allow that. They're not breaking the law, right? You're not breaking the law. You're doing it completely legal. And yeah, I could probably never pay taxes if I had the money to invest in a tax lawyer and tax accountant and different things. And definitely if I come into money from AMC, and through the stock market and different things, yeah, I mean, I probably would. But my thing is, I would use it more. Let me give you an example, okay? if all this craziness goes on with the stock market and different things happen with retail investors and I came into a lump sum of money or whatever from it, I would turn around and figure out, okay, I owe approximately this much to the government in taxes. Well, I guess because of the American Minus or whatever, I personally wouldn't want to give, all of it. Let's just say I owe 30% to the government in taxes, right? Well, if I can donate X amount of dollars to a true good foundation, to a true good cause, and therefore my amount actually going to the government is 20%, well, I still ended up paying 30% total, but only 20% went to the government. That other 10% went to a good reason, such as I want to buy every police dog in my county, for like the local police departments, the sheriff's department, and all that. All of the police dogs, the canines, I want to buy them all new vests. They're a few $1,000s a piece, especially if you want to get the good ones, So I could do that through a 501c nonprofit charity and use that as a tax deduction off of my tax bill. But so how's it like that? Can you be a multi-millionaire, billionaire, and pretty much pay zero in taxes, or are you guys actually having to pay that so that way you have the ability to maintain the socialism?
Gains rate of 30%. So it's not an income tax, it's a capital gains tax. And the US also has this capital gains tax. Short term, under 12 months, is 15%. Long term, over 12 months, is 30%. So basically the same as Sweden.
Yes, and that is actually also being changed, I believe. President Biden has, for the last while, been talking about increasing the capital gains tax. So if currently what you're saying, my gentleman, is that it is the same, essentially, well, if Biden has his way, then that means we will be increasing our tax rate for capital gains tax.
So you can get rich in Sweden. Sweden is actually one of the richest countries in the world, but only if you are generating your wealth through capital gains.
That is investing or owning a business. And Sweden has a lot of sole proprietors and entrepreneurs.
5% of Sweden's adults are involved in setting up new businesses, and almost 6% have invested in a business started by someone else. Sweden's corporate tax is 21%, which is the same as in the US.
Stockholm actually produces the second highest number of billion-dollar tech companies per capita in the world, second only to Silicon Valley. In Sweden overall, there are 20 startups per 1,000 employees, compared to just 5 in the US.
And I'm sure you've heard of a lot of Swedish companies, such as IKEA,
Spotify,
Husqvarna,
H&M,
SCT,
Ericsson, Skype, just to name a few. So how can there be so many startups in established billion-dollar companies in a country with such high tax rate? Simply because there is a lot more entrepreneurism. Let's say you're a typical employee in a salaried job working for a company in the USA, and you have an amazing business idea. What is going to stop you from pursuing that idea? The main reason, I know after talking with friends in the US, is the risk.
Yeah.
People just aren't willing to forego their benefits,
Losing their healthcare.
Their salary job. It's too risky to leave all of that to try to start your own business. Meaning those people that start businesses in the US generally come from stable social networks where people can support them. That is a generalization, of course. There are many rags to riches stories. But I mean, you think Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, they all came from very privileged backgrounds.
But the risk here in Sweden isn't as high just because of the social safety net that we've provided for everyone living here.
The benefits of the safety net are that more people are better educated, healthier, more secure, and upwardly mobile. You can take the risk of starting a company and still enjoy having healthcare, childcare, elderly care, and you can even live a somewhat comfortable life on unemployment. Not that you should. So those are facts about the American capitalist system
versus the Swedish socialism.
So now it's your turn to decide.
Awesome. So that is American capitalism versus the Swedish socialism. You decide. Obviously, I don't want to make this outro too long because of the simple fact that I already know this video is way longer than it needs to be. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you didn't, that's okay. You're not going to hurt my wow. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm not going to be offended. It's okay. And, we all have our thoughts, feelings, and opinions. We all have the right to that. We're all human beings. So, you have your own mind. You have your own freedom of choice. Like I said, if you like it, great. I love you. And it's wonderful. And if you didn't like it, that's cool. I love you too. And, I'm not your cup of tea. That's great. So, thank you for watching. And it's me, Bryson P. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.